Welcome to the Get Real Movies podcast. My name is Daniel Chadwick Shubat. I'm your host, and I am so glad to be finally joined again by my wonderful co-host, Mason. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Dan, the movie man. It's always a pleasure when you let me out for my monthly reprieve from the hole. It's so good to be back out with the sunlight.
Yes, I'm sorry it's been so long. We did have a little bit of our summer hiatus in there, and I already apologized to the listeners about that. But now we are back, and Mason's back, so all is right in the world again.
Yes, I finally have peace in my soul,
Well,
if not my heart.
I am cheersing you with my Canadian whiskey because we cannot access bourbon here because our government is not friendly with your government right now, Mason. I don't know if you know that, but
Yeah, I've got no fighting words except I'm sorry. Those are the only words I can give you at this point.
now you're sounding Canadian. I don't like this, Mason.
So I'm sorry. So to drink in solidarity with you, I'm drinking this cheap Aldi seltzer. I don't know if you have Aldi up north, but it's a very cheap, like truly knockoff. So that's my self-inflicted punishment.
Mason, last time I was in your wonderful country, especially your wonderful city, I had those as well, and I absolutely love them. So I'm very jealous of you right now, and I wish I had some cheap Aldi seltzers as well to enjoy. But sadly, I'm stuck with a wonderful single malt whiskey from local here.
It's okay. I'll smuggle some really crappy seltzers across the border to save you from your no doubt deliciously high-quality single malt whiskey.
Well, don't worry. When I sneak over the border again, I will also bring you some single malt whiskey. So we're both looking after each other.
I love it. That's equality. I bring you cheap-ass seltzers, and you bring me high-quality single malt whiskey. That is equality at its finest.
Exactly. That sounds about right. But Mason, today is a special episode. It is not a numbered episode. It is not an independent film focus. Today, we are announcing some very wonderful news, and that is that the Get Real Movies podcast is attending the Toronto International Film Festival this year. So kudos to us.
That's right. We're legit. We're official now, baby. Look at that.
So I will be attending in person for the first time since 2017. So I'm very excited for that. And Mason will be attending virtually through all the goodie screeners we're getting sent. And we will be reporting live from TIFF throughout the week from September 4th to the 7th, I believe. And then we will also be kind of giving some of our interviews that we have over there. I'll be sprinkling them throughout the episodes, and we'll be talking about the films that we've watched. But we thought that this episode we'd also preview TIFF and talk about some of the films that we're excited to see and kind of let you know about them as well. But before we get into that, Mason, as we always do in our episodes, and I don't think it should change now, is there anything that you've been watching that you would like to educate the audience on or recommend to the audience?
I shall educate/recommendate to the audience. For a recent movie that I have seen, there's this coming back trend in theaters now that I'm actually really curious about with 4D movies. I saw Twister sequel, Twisters, a few years ago in 4D, and I was really shocked just how much more that added to the experience. And recently I saw F1, a movie that I really didn't have any interest in, like nothing against the sport itself, but it just doesn't speak to me. But I went to see it with some friends because they wanted to do it, and we went to a 4D theater, and I felt like I was in a jet. Like the rumble of the engines, you feel like the wind as the cars are passing by, like NASCAR style. It added so much more to what, in my mind, if I just watched it in my living room, would be like a solid B movie. Like nothing wrong with it, just nothing amazing about it in my personal eyes. So if you have the chance, highly recommend seeing F1 in a 4D theater. At the very least, it's a lot of fun, and you get to see Brad Pitt being sexy Brad Pitt, and what more can you ask for that? TV-wise, Alien Earth. Noah Hawley is a weird kind of Wes Anderson type favorite of mine, where he's very wonky in the shows he makes and what he does. I was a big fan of his Legion series on FX, which was kind of an X-Men knockoff, but it was very bizarre in the best ways. And Alien Earth is less bizarre, like it's exactly what you expect from an alien show, but it's also very unique in the characters and the dialogue and how you see this world. And it doesn't pull punches. Like you're not waiting episodes on episodes to see what you came to see, like the aliens and the character work and the alien work. Very well done. So I highly recommend that if you have the chance. But that's enough out of me, Daniel. What are you watching?
Well, first of all, I'd like to comment on your picks there. F1, I truly enjoyed in the theaters, and I'm a big F1 fan. You have to turn your brain off a little bit, but it's definitely a fun ride, and seeing it on the largest, most interactive screen does not sound like a bad idea. In terms of Alien Earth, I haven't seen it yet, but I will put that on the list because I absolutely adore Noah Hawley. He could do terrible shite for the rest of his life. And he made Fargo season one, so I will always love him for that. In terms of my
Fargo's excellent, yeah.
recommendations, the first one I'd like to make is a movie that came out a little earlier in the year, but I finally got to see, and I think it might be one of my favorite films of the year so far. And that was the Ballad of Wallace Island. It was a wonderful little indie pick with Carey Mulligan, and it's about two indie folk singers who used to be together, and they're brought back by a millionaire who decides to hire them to play together again after years apart. They were also a couple, so there's a very interesting dynamic there, and I absolutely adored the film. It was such a lighthearted, heartwarming film that I just can't say enough good things about. I think that one of the biggest surprises of it was an English actor named Tim Key, who I was just howling at the entire movie. He reminded me of my dad in terms of the amount of dad jokes he told, but he just played the character so well. I highly, highly recommend that. And then throwing it back a little bit, and not in the hip hop way, I also wanted to recommend Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I finally caught that for the first time, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's Val Kilmer at his best, and it's just really peak Shane Black, and
Yeah.
it makes sense.
And it's set at Christmas because it has to be.
Of course, it's a Christmas film, just like Die Hard is. We're not arguing.
Just like Iron Man 3 is, right?
Yeah, and you know it's quite interesting because I love The Nice Guys, so I should have watched this long ago, but I hadn't. I finally did, and I really truly enjoyed it. So I think those are my two recommendations. We'll stick with the two movies from me and the one movie and one TV show from Mason, as we usually do. But Mason, we've given our recommendations, so I think there's nothing left to do but for us to preview the 50th Toronto International Film Festival. So I will let you start off with one of your first movies that you're looking forward to, and I will hand it off to you.
Well, let's dive right in. TIFF, 50 years of glorious indie and big budget films combined. You never know what you're going to get like this box of chocolates. And speaking of box of chocolates, let's talk about everybody's second favorite, Hanks, Colin. He is bringing up a documentary about John Candy. For those who aren't aware, John Candy was a huge comedy superstar on SNL, Tommy Boy. I mean, the man's talent was unparalleled in making you just die laughing. Unfortunately, passed away far too early, and so this documentary follows his life, and I personally am very curious to see that. I'm also very curious to see Colin Hanks's directing ability. I don't think off of the top of my head I've seen anything that he's made. So I'm curious to see if he performs well with what is no doubt a very intriguing story. And also just to see the story itself, because I know for a fact John Candy has a story to tell. So I'm looking forward about that. You want to trade off and we'll just go one by one?
We'll go one by one. I like this, but I'd like to say that was definitely one of my picks as well from what I've seen so far, that this will be a wonderful, wonderful reflection of a truly great comedian and a Canadian man. Surprisingly, a lot of good comedians in Canada. I don't know if you know, but we're pretty.
You
funny
guys have
here.
A great funny bone up there. Keeps you warm in all those cold summer months.
We do. The first movie that I'd like to talk about is Saipan, and that is the wonderful Steve Coogan playing someone who might not be known to you Americans because you do not love the wonderful sport of football the way we do here.
I know Steve Coogan.
No, you know Steve Coogan, but you might not know the man he's playing, and that is Mick McCarthy. This is a true story about the infamous fallout of the Irish national football team during the 2002 World Cup. It was about the spat between Mick McCarthy and Roy Keane, two people who are quite well known in the UK and to most football fans worldwide. Roy Keane is the most angry football player you will ever come across. And I'm very excited to see what they do with this. This is the exact type of film that I love talking to true people, like talking to real people about. And I hope I'm able to talk to some of the real people about this movie. And I love Steve Coogan whenever he gets his hands on a meaty, dramatic role. And I think this will be a good one. So that is what I'm quite excited for.
Yeah, you're right. I have no idea who he's playing, so that was a fair call out there. But I'll watch anything with him in it too. I think my first experience with him was Tropic Thunder, of all things. The guy knows how to play his characters, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does there.
Cool. So what is your next one, good sir?
All right, so I'll go for one of the big budget ones. I am a sucker for Rian Johnson's Knives Out series. I'm a huge Knives Out fan. Less so with Glass Onion, but I thought Glass Onion was still solid. So Wake Up Dead Man is coming to TIFF 50. That's the next in the trilogy of Poirot knockoffs. And I just can't wait. I feel like it's a consistently fun time trying to figure out who killed who. I think Rian Johnson's got a good way of building up that tension while also still having fun with the whole aspect of it. And I can't really say much more about it. I want a screener. Ryan, I'm one of your unpopular stands for Last Jedi, so I feel like that gives me some leeway for a screener. Come on, man. Work with me.
Yes, well, I hope he listens, but if not, it will be coming out on Netflix soon, and I'll tell you how it is, Mason. I'll tell you how it is from the festival. That's almost as
Tell
good
me
as
how it
watching
is.
the film.
I see how it is. Yeah, so it's like I get the microwaved leftovers while you get the prime steak. Huh?
No. You're going to get many wonderful films to watch as well, I'm sure. And I hope it's this one as well. But I'm very much looking forward to this film as well. And I will go on to my next one. And my next one is Normal, which is the latest offering from Ben Wheatley. Ben Wheatley is a director that I absolutely adore. High Rise is a wonderful film. And he also was able to debut a film at TIFF in 2016, I believe, which also played at Midnight Madness. And it's one of my favorite things that TIFF does is the Midnight Madness series where they play just absolutely bonkers films. And that was Free Fire, which I got to see at Midnight Madness, and I absolutely had a great time. And Normal is with Bob Odenkirk. It's about a sheriff in a town dealing with a bunch of constituents that have a bone to pick with him. And I don't know much more about it because I don't want to know much more about it. I want to go into this film blind. I'm sold. It's Ben Wheatley and Bob Odenkirk at Midnight Madness at TIFF. I'm going to have a whale of a time.
Whale of a time. I will say I'm familiar with. I watched High Rise. I watched Free Fire. Just on a whim, I Googled him while you were talking. I didn't know that he also directed The Meg 2. That is a very bizarre up and down in terms of film quality. So I'm also curious to see what he does. Is it going to be another Free Fire or is it going to be a Meg 3 situation? Well, time will only tell. All right, so I'll go on to my third one. The Fence by Claire Denis. I've only watched one other film by this director, and I don't know very much about this one yet, but I watched High on Life, which she also directed with Robert Pattinson starring. Very incredible film, very messed up in a lot of places as well, but it makes you ask a lot of questions of yourself and kind of the nature of humanity. So with that in mind, and knowing her kind of penchant for pushing the weird, much like Noah Hawley, I'm excited to see kind of the depths or heights that she will take this film to kind of reflect on ourselves, who we are as people. I can only imagine that's what it is going to deal with, but we will have to wait and see. Or you could get me a screener. You could be a soldier in arms, a brother in arms, and get me that good content, my guy.
Yes, well, anything for you, Mason. I will email Claire right now.
Remember the cheap Aldi seltzers that I'm bringing as motivation.
Yeah, you know what? That is good enough for me. I as soon as we're done this recording, it will be done. My next one is California Scheman, and that is James McAvoy's directorial debut. I'm very, very excited for this. Not only is it a true story, it's about two Scottish guys pretending to be an American hip-hop duo. And this is one of those films that I kind of want to go really blind into. It has a premise that sold me. And James McAvoy is someone who I don't think I've seen anything where I haven't at least enjoyed his performance. Actors aren't always great directors, but I think he is one of those actors who understands his craft well enough where I think he will do a great job. That is another one where I'm hoping we can land an interview with those two guys because I feel like they would be fascinating people to chat to. So that is my third pick, California Scheman.
I've seen James McAvoy break his back carrying films by himself in certain regards. He got a lot of well-deserved praise for Split. I really enjoyed his take on Speak No Evil, even though it was kind of a lesser remake, but his performance in that was fantastic. I think the worst film I've seen him in was Wanted, and I loved Wanted. I thought Wanted was fantastic just from his performance and charisma with Angelina Jolie. Anyway, his work can do no wrong in my eyes. Looking forward to seeing what he does here.
Yes, me too.
All right. You actually stole one of mine, so I got to skip to my next one. Hedda by Nia DaCosta. I didn't know much about this before watching the trailer, but Nia DaCosta, she was the director behind, in my mind, the underrated Candyman remake from 2025. Or I guess you call it kind of like a reboot. I thought that was excellent, and I had a great time with it. She's also directing the upcoming 28 Years Later sequel. I think it's called The Bone Temple.
The Bone Temple, yeah.
I'm really excited for that, too, since the last 28 Years Later was very well done, but that was Danny Boyle, so... Anyway, Hedda, it looks like kind of a steamy period piece, but it's got a very sexy Tessa Thompson who has been, and I'm taking this quote from the trailer, domesticated, unquote. And she's trying to kind of rebel against that when an old flame comes into her life. And there's a couple of people interested in her because, I mean, it's Tessa Thompson. Come on. Looking very, very fun. I'm getting kind of Bridgerton vibes from it, but a much more hip Bridgerton. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do there.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that film as well. I'm not sure I will be able to fit it into my schedule with how all the screenings are working out, but that's definitely one I'm looking forward to. And I'm sorry I stole one of your films, but I will go on to my next one. And I don't think this will be in your list, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know you as well as I thought. And that is Glenn Rothen, which is another by someone who I think is up there in the Mount Rushmore of acting, and that is Brian Cox. And he is making his directorial debut. Alan Cumming is in it as well, and he is one of those theater actors that I think just translates really well onto the screen. And it's a tense family drama, and it's Brian Cox doing family drama. I mean, anyone who's seen Succession knows he knows how to do a family drama really well.
That man commands a screen.
Yeah, he's utterly commanding, and he's starring and directing. And I'm so glad that Tiff got this one because it will be my last film of the festival when I watch it, and I couldn't be more excited for it. I think it's probably going to be one of my favorites coming out of the festival, if it's half as good as I think it will be.
I'm curious I completely agree that Brian Cox is an incredible actor, but I'm curious to hear such praise from you about it, because I remember, maybe not him specifically, but he kind of pissed you off with the Churchill biopic that he did a few years ago, and you were not a fan of that film.
Yeah, I do remember that. I think for me, it wasn't a bad performance by him. It was just an incredibly boring film compared to the one that came out so soon before, and that was Darkest Hour. I think when you follow up after a film like that with something that is maybe just much more, I don't know, quiet. And Churchill for me was not a quiet character. He was a loud character, and I think obviously his whole history was very fascinating to me, and he's one of my favorite historical figures for that reason. But I think one of the reasons that Churchill was so remembered is because of how loud he was and how he stepped up in a really terrible time. And I think that
he was very brusque.
Yeah, he was. And there's a reason he wasn't voted in after the war. And it's because he was a wartime leader, and that's who he was. So seeing him out of war and seeing him in a more quiet moment, especially after a film that's so good, and I'm talking about Darkest Hour there again, I think that it didn't translate as well. But it has been a while since I've seen that. I have grown, so maybe I would appreciate it more now.
You've developed, yes.
I remember Brian Cox's performance was still perfectly, I think my estimation of him has grown a lot since I started Succession a couple of years back. And whenever I see him in a film, he is just instantly enjoyable. I think he's one of my favorite villains when it comes to the Bourne series. And I'm just excited to see so many directorial debuts from actors who I love. And James McAvoy is one of them, and then Brian Cox is another. So that's definitely one that I'm looking forward to seeing.
See, take a lesson from this, listeners. No matter how much somebody has wronged you, you can always find it in your heart to bring them back if they prove themselves. And Brian Cox has scratched and clawed his way back into Daniel's good graces, and I can only applaud him for that after God knows however many Emmys and recognitions he's received.
That's how I feel about you, Mason.
Got him. All right, for my next one, this one is staunchly American. I know nothing about this director, but canceled, the Paula Deen story. I am kind of surprised that this one is getting an entire film treatment. That being said, I am extremely excited for it because I have a lot of relatives who are very Southern and therefore huge Paula Deen stans. And when this situation happened with her racial slur scandal, there was a big divide, not just in my family, but also in America, as there is right now, as no doubt you can tell. So I am very curious to see how this documentary paints her. I hope it leaves it open-ended, as any documentary should, like neither good nor bad, but you have to make that decision. I will have to just wait and see there. But at the very least, I think it'll make a great conversation piece for Thanksgiving.
I will do my best to get you a screener for that then, Mason.
Can't get me Wake Up Dead Man, but you can get me the Paula Deen Butter movie. All right, well, I'll take the wins that I can there.
So I have a few more films that I want to talk about, but I will only list two more, and then I'll just give you a little general list. But one I'm quite looking forward to is Hamnet. That's because anything Shakespeare catches my eye. I wouldn't say it's based on a true story because I feel like they're going to take a lot of artistic license with it. But it's a wonderful cast. Jesse Buckley, who I think is a real up and comer. People love Paul Mescal and Emily Watson. And then, of course, there's our very poor lad, Joe Alwyn, who's had a terrible day today, I'm sure. We were recording this on the day that Travis Kelce was proposed to Taylor Swift, for all those Taylor Swift fans out there.
I can't wait for the marriage and divorce and the songs that come from both.
Yeah, so I think it's a really stunning cast in this film, and Chloe Zhao has proven that she knows how to handle a big cast. I'm not talking about Nomadland there; I'm talking about Eternals, Mason. But I really think that this will be a return to kind of normalcy for her, and a return to maybe a smaller scale film, but with something that I'm quite interested and excited for.
We can only hope. And yes, of course, I forgot. I don't even know why we're recording today when it's obviously a national holiday of Taylor Swift's engagement day. But yeah, for Chloe Zhao's part, I was not personally a huge fan of Nomadland, but I did recognize at least some of what made it so beautiful. Obviously, Eternals, the less said about that, the better. That being said, what her next outing will be, I can't even begin to imagine how this will turn out. At the very least, I'm intrigued by the unpredictability of it. So we'll see how that goes. I've got one last one, and then I'll let you do your list. But my last concentrated, excited film of the TIFF lineup is The Lost Bus, another very American story about a bus driver who is trying to keep a bunch of kids and a teacher safe from the 2018 California campfire, which I think is one of the most devastating fires in this country's history, if not ever. Either way, Matthew McConaughey, America Ferrera, and Paul Greengrass. You were bringing up The Bourne Identity earlier, Daniel, so you got your Greengrass shaky cam boy coming back for one last go-round. Or I don't know how many movies he's going to make, but either way, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to Lost Bus. I think that will be one of the only premieres I'll be attending. And I'm hoping we can get Kevin McKay, which is who the bus driver was and who Matthew McConaughey plays in the film, on the podcast to talk about the film, because as much as it's an American story, I also think it's a universal story, because you got to respect heroes like that who put their own lives on the line to especially save kids. When you're saving kids, you're a pretty big hero in my mind. Who cares about
100%.
adults? But if you save kids or dogs, you're pretty good in my book. Well, I will give you one last movie because, you were talking about some American stories. So I'm going to bring up a Canadian story that is playing at TIFF, and that is Outstanding. That is two words, not one. Outstanding. Melanie Charbonneau, who's quite a well-known Canadian director here, and it is the true story about Canada's first female infantry woman. She had a wonderful memoir that came out a few years ago in 2017 called Outstanding in the Field, and it was all about her stories in the Army with the 22 Regiment. I think popularly known as the Vendeuse, and there's a lot of history behind it. But it talks about how she had to deal with incredible sexism in the Army to get where she was, even though she deserved to be there. And from what I've heard so far about this movie, it's incredibly tough watch, but something that they did a really fantastic job with and were really sensitive with. So I'm quite looking forward to that film. And I know it's another true story, and maybe I'm being predictable here on the Get Real Movies podcast, but to that I say, fuck it.
I'm always so skeptical when I hear true story or based on a true story. It's like when they say no green screen was used in the making of this. It's like, okay, maybe there wasn't green screen, but you definitely did some visual effects for, ABC or whatever. And when I see based on a true story, I'm like, okay, it might be based on it, but like how much artistic liberty was taken. Not that that's a bad thing to take liberty, but don't make me think, oh, wow, all these amazing things happen in real life, only for me to then look like an idiot when I'm like, well, you can't say that about that person because he saved 500 kids. And it's like, no, that guy just stumbled out of the house drunkenly and happened to be carrying his baby at the time. That's very different from telling a true story versus, quote unquote, based on a true story.
And that's why, Mason, this podcast is so necessary, because we can ask the people exactly what happened. And if Hollywood Hollywoodized it, we can shame them. We can shame them on this podcast.
That's right. And that's how we're going to get more invitations and accreditations, is by shaming the films that we review. Can't wait for that to be our reputation.
Hollywood, big pharma, big Hollywood. They're the same.
There's nothing Hollywood loves more than being told why it's bad. So I can't wait to be the faces of that.
Well, exactly. But anyways, Mason, I will give you a few more movies that I'm looking forward to. Dead Man's Wire, which is another true story, but it's Gus Van Sant coming back, and it's about a 1977 kidnapping in Indianapolis, of all places. You wouldn't expect that to be an exciting movie, but Indianapolis is a happening place now. You got Caitlin Clark, and I think
that's the end of the list.
And other things. I love you if any of our listeners are from Indianapolis, and I'm happy to be educated. But I do love Gus Van Sant, even though he can be a hit or miss director. But this excites me. It's got Bill Skarsgård, Coleman Domingo, Al Pacino. That is a cast that sells me immediately. Blue Moon is another film that I'm quite excited for. Ethan Hawke is playing another musician whenever he plays a music. I am in The Smashing Machine, which is one of the Safdie brothers' new films. We're going to have a Safdie off this year between that and Marty Supreme. So let's see who's the better brother. It's like seeing the Coen brothers kind of do their own thing.
Yeah, but that didn't end very well. Like when the Coen brothers went off by themselves, their films definitely took a dip. I'm worried about the Safdie splitting. I hope it works out great, but I'm worried that they will not be great singular than they were as the whole.
Well, maybe it'll bring them back together. Maybe, because I've heard they didn't have anything bad happen. It's just they want to do their own thing. So we will see, and I'm looking forward to it. Both look quite good so far. So, and then finally, the movie that I'm most looking forward to, besides all the ones that I've already mentioned, is Tuner. This is about a safecracker. It's with Leo Woodall and Dustin Hoffman. It's from a documentarian who's doing his narrative debut. And anything that Dustin Hoffman's in now, I'm excited for, because I don't know how many years of his acting we have left in terms of when he'll retire. But I take every movie that he's in as something that I'm looking forward to. So that is my list, and that is Mason's list. And we are very, very excited for the Toronto International Film Festival, Canada's premier film festival, better than all the other ones. Don't talk about Venice, don't talk about Cannes, don't talk about New York, don't talk about London. Toronto is where it's at.
Yes, he said, acknowledging that and nothing else. No, seriously, thank you, Tiff, for the wonderful invitations. We're very excited to have Daniel on the ground, and I'm very excited to see the screeners from afar. No doubt these are going to be some fantastic, or at the very least, very mind-bending trips that we are going to be going on with these different works of art. And one way or another, I'm sure it's going to be a great time. So thank you again. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, Mason said thank you to Tiff before I did. So I can, eat my humble pie now and say I completely agree. I'm very excited. Mason, thank you for joining me once again. It's been way too long. Let's not do this again, because I didn't enjoy doing all these episodes by myself, but I'm very excited to talk to you again during the festival about all the different wonderful films we're watching. And as always, Mason, lead us out.
Well, if this podcast made you want to go to Canada to see some very unique and awesome films, then maybe leave us a subscribe. Maybe leave a like or a comment on Spotify because they let you do that now. But until next time, I've been Mason.
I've been Daniel.
And we'll see you at the movies. And thank you for listening to Get Real Movies Podcast. Bye, y'all.